start picking your brain about your mom and dad. Your mom. Tell us some quirky things your mom did. Anything?
Ooh.
anything that comes to mind.
Flying the broom around the kitchen.
Okay.
At Wolf Creek.
Okay, go into that. What was that all about?
She told the boys that she was a witch.
Uh-huh.
And the boys would, I think it was you and Danny, or Danny and Bobby. I think it was Danny and Bobby, and they said, no, witches have to fly on a broom. She says, well, I fly on a broom. No, you're not a witch. And she says, then get on the back of this broom and I'll fly you around the room. And she picked that broom up, straddled it, and cooked those two boys on that broom and flew them around the kitchen. And they just knew she was a witch. Because she told them that.
Did you see this yourself?
Oh, yes.
Yeah? How did she do it?
Yeah, that amazes me. I don't think I could hold two of my kids up on the end of a broom.
She just held the end of the broom with two kids on it and gave them a ride.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And Bobby used to rock on his stomach, and he'd rock back and forth on his stomach with his feet up in the air, and he'd rock like this on his stomach, and we'd all get down on the floor and try to about kill our guts off. I was the closest one to being able to do it like he did, but and she used to tell us she was a boy turned into a girl.
Wow.
And she'd make us potato chips on the wood stove when Daddy wasn't there because he thought it was unsanitary. And I was going to run away from home one time. She made me, with my packed bag, sit on the floor behind her, watch her iron clothes all day long. It was boring. I didn't run away again. But I wanted to go back to Texas. I didn't like it there.
Yeah. Yeah. What are
I can't
oddball
remember.
things?
I can't remember a whole lot of stories and stuff she told us about us as a kid. But she used to tell us Grandpa would, he had a logging outfit out in the woods, and he'd put a sign in town that he needed fallers and stuff like this, and it was 2 miles to the mill, or the camp, and they'd stay there. And then every little bit he'd put, like it was half a mile more, and like this. And by the time they walked 15 to 20 miles to the place where he worked, they ended up working for him for a while before they'd walk all the way back to town.
They just figured they were out of shape.
Yeah. And when she got to move with him onto one of the jobs, the camp cook was going to bake a cake, and they wanted to know what kind of cake it was. I mean, she says everything in the kitchen cake. And literally, Mother helped her put everything in the kitchen cupboard into that cake.
Wow.
Pepper, everything. Little kid, they're going to help. And I think the saddest story, and I don't think Mom ever told me, I can't think if it was Aunt Betty or who it was. When Mama was a little girl, her mama died, and Grandpa put her into a nice family, he thought, to take care of her. And he'd send her a doll on her birthday or Christmas and different holidays. And I guess she had quite a few. At that time, they were the China dolls, and the cloth bodies and the China hands and feet. And she had one doll that he had given her before he left that she hung on to all the time. And Uncle Gus and Uncle Don were boarded someplace else, or working someplace else, or doing something else. And she was there by herself, and I found out they had been locking her up into a closet, and it scared her. And she would hug on her doll until the head fell off it. She didn't have a head on it when Uncle Gus and Uncle Don found her. And they tried to take that doll away from her, and she had such a ballistic fit because they didn't want Grandpa to see the fact that she was hanging on to a headless doll. But she came and lived at the logging camp with him after that. They brought her to him. And Aunt Bee raised her as, Mama called Aunt Bee Mama until she was 16 years old, I think. I think it was Aunt Betty that told me, and I had never known that about. Well, what brought me to that is when I was about 5 or 6 years old, I got a hold of a China doll that the only doll Mama had. And I just knew I could play with it without hurting, and I cracked her face, and Mama sat and cried. I can't remember her crying, but I didn't know at that time why.
Was it Aunt Bee that raised her, or was it
Aunt Bee, until
Mary?
she's sick. Well, she could have been between both of them, but Aunt Bee did the bear share of it, and when she was scared or lonesome or something, it was Uncle Gus and Uncle Don she went running to.
Cause it was the three of them that got farmed out together.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought there for a little while Aunt Mary raised them too.
Well, she could have, but Aunt Bee was she was at the logging camps too, and took care of Mama, the lion's share of it up there. But I think she's close to it. The only children she had till she adopted Sandy and Linda. Her brother, Roy, drowned in, was it Lake Mission or Lake Erie? One of the Great Lakes. He drowned in with his daughter Rosemary.
Off the bridge.
The car had gone off the road and into the water. He got out, and when he couldn't find her, he went back in to help her get out, and they both drowned. And they found out when they pulled out, it was one shoe underneath the seat or something that kept Rosemary from getting out. And Mama was, I went from Texas to his funeral. I could remember Barbara and I was going to go. We got in a lot of trouble that time. Danny was a baby, and he slept in a dresser drawer, and we was upstairs, and we were going to go someplace, I can't remember where, in the middle of the night, and Uncle Don caught us. We come down the stairs, and he was going up the stairs, and we had to go back up the stairs. We walked a big brick wall between one of the water, because Uncle Reg was in the Coast Guard. And there was a lot of sailors around his place, and we used to flirt with them a lot. Of course, at 5 and 6, you can do that. 7.
Still can.
Yeah. It doesn't do as much fun. But we were walking along that, and it was like 15 or 20 feet, I think, below where the water was below us. And we'd walk along that till Uncle Don caught us.
Well, after their brother drowned, that was a little...
Yeah, it was a little testy, wasn't it?
Pushy.
And I can remember that was... everybody crying. That bothered me. Couldn't figure out why everybody was crying. Then we went to Detroit with Aunt Jean and Uncle Don to their house and I learned to ride a bicycle for the first time. Some big kid taught me how to ride a bicycle until I turned around. He wasn't there, and I fell off. And then we went back to Texas. And I can't remember. I think that was the only time we went back there that I can remember of as growing up. But Aunt Bee would come and visit. She'd come to visit us when Danny was born. And I went running out and told Daddy that there was 2 black-headed people in Mama's bed. I knew it wasn't Daddy. He was almost bald. and that's when I can remember the first time seeing Aunt Bee. I used to think she was the most beautiful lady.
She talked really funny.
Yeah, she did have a funny accent, didn't she? I have a friend that has a southern accent, and we tease her about her accent all the time. Well, when I went to Florida with her, she turned around in the plane, she says, "Now y'all talk funny, I don't." But Aunt Bee did have an accent.
About your dad. Tell me some things about your dad that you remember.
Hard worker. He worked a lot. I can remember when we were still living with Uncle Gus and Ione, they had a huge swing way up in the top of the tree. The swing came down, and Janie and I were swinging. She was sitting and I was standing up over her pumping. We was getting quite a bit out there like this, that rope right out there. And I can remember Daddy finding me and grabbing me and holding me and rocking me back and forth on it, because I just knew I was busted. I just knew I had to be busted. I was 9. I just knew I was busted.
You both got away with that unscathed?
Yeah, pretty much. I can remember our first Christmas we come from Texas. We drew names. Everybody got somebody's name. From Texas and up here, Daddy got my name and I got his name.
Wow.
Real cool. Out of all the names, we got each other's name for Christmas that year. But I can't remember what I got him for Christmas. I can remember after he broke his back, he worked in the mines in Rock Slab Valley and broke his back. It was his back or neck? Back. And he was in the hospital while, started out the huge box, little box, and ended up with a huge box and had Mama take it to the hospital with him. And one of his pill boxes, and at those times they were cardboard pill boxes. I remember that. It hinged on the back and come down and had a pill box in it. And I put a $1 bill in it for him. Because I had heard him one time say he never had $1 to spend on himself. So I wrapped up a whole bunch of boxes, different sizes. I got this huge one, and I said, "Here's $1 for you to spend on yourself." I didn't realize how that would sound to an adult. You know, hurtful it could sound, but I didn't mean it as bad. But I can remember one present. I can't remember, but it was when I think he was in the hospital and had Mama take it to him, and he had $1 for himself. And then he was gone for a long time because he went to Texas on the train and went to stay with Uncle Otto because he did the massaging and stuff to help his back through his feet. He was gone for a while then.
Didn't ride the train down there. He drove the old gray ghost.
Here comes
Did
the train.
he really?
Brian,
Yep.
Brian, get the train.
Okay, we're gonna stop for a second.
Train.
Okay, now we're back. Now, talk about your dad. You didn't really tell us much. Tell us about your dad. Tell us everything you know about your dad.
There wasn't a whole lot to tell. I remember if you could be quiet enough and the family would get talking together, the guys would stand around, sit around the kitchen table and talking. If you could be real quiet and he wouldn't know it, you could find out a lot of things. Daddy used to steal watermelons under his arm from the farmers, and they'd get shot at. I don't know if it was buckshot or if it was rock salt, but he'd get shot at. And he said, if you're real lucky, you got out with one watermelon. And I can't remember too much else. I can remember he used to tell us he had a horse he'd ride to school. And coming home at night, it'd start getting dark, and he'd lay across his head on the rump of that horse, and his legs on each side of his neck, and the horse would take him home every night.
Mm-hmm.
And his mama died when he was 19. And he met and married Mama when he was 26, and she was 18. She had just turned 18.
Him and his brothers had harmonizing singing, but they did have their own radio show.
I didn't know that. I knew
Yeah,
Uncle
Ben
Otto.
called me a liar and said, no, they didn't. They didn't have their own radio show. They never sang. And I said, they did too.
I remember Uncle Otto and
They did
Aunt
just
Frank
songs.
singing, but I didn't know any of the rest
Dad's the
of
only one
them.
that didn't play a musical instrument, but the rest of the brothers did, and they sang harmony.
I did not know that.
Ella.
Yeah, like I said, you only learn things if you could keep quiet enough, and obviously I didn't keep quiet enough all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I remember he was a baby of the family. The only thing I can remember is when he told us about going into service. Daddy was drafted. Uncle Ernest was drafted. And they told him that none of the others would be, or there would be some dead draftee people there. And Uncle Otto was shot in the legs and had bullet holes in his legs from one of the missions he had in World War II. And Daddy never left the States. I can remember that much, and I didn't talk about it a whole lot. I can remember that he used to say he always wanted to go back to one of the reunions. And I think Faye finally got him to one of them.
Back in Iowa.
Yeah, for one of the reunions.
How much time did you spend with Aunt Betty?
Aunt Betty Martin or my
Mhm.
mother? That was something else when you say Aunt Betty. If the only ones that could get away with Aunt Betty and not mean somebody other than their mother
Mm-hmm.
was the Uncle Don's kids, because they had two Aunt Bettys. And
They were both Aunt Betty Jeans.
yes, Aunt Betty Jeans. We spent a lot of time with Aunt Betty and Uncle Gus, quite a bit of time. I can remember really getting myself in a lot of trouble at Wolf Creek. I ran from Daddy when he got mad at me one time, and he didn't catch me till I got to the barn. And he spanked me every bit of the way back home, and I had whelps from my shoulders to my knees. And that was the night we were supposed to go stay with Uncle Gus. And Dad says, well, you're not going to let her go like that, are you? And she says, you explain that to my brother. And we went. And Uncle Gus told Daddy if he ever did that to me again, that he would shoot him.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't remember getting beat like that quite that bad, but that was my fault. I ran. I should not have ran.
I never remember getting a spanking.
I did quite frequently. We used to hide his belt. He had a leather strap when we were in Texas that you sharpened the straight edge on, and we hid it behind the refrigerator. there's a kind of a cage thing on the back of the refrigerator, and we didn't just hide it behind the refrigerator, we hid it in that. And he didn't find it till we moved from Texas to Washington, and he found it, but he didn't bring it with him. He worked a lot. He would teach us different things like rubber baby buggy mumper. You have to learn to say that real fast. Flipping quarters. You had to take, you'd put 5 quarters on your 2 fingers here, and with these 2 fingers you had to lift the back one and put in front of the other one without tipping the quarters over. And he would do that very fast, almost like shuffling it, really fast. He could do that. And he used to get down on the floor and put us on his knees, and we kind of like fly. And that was before he hurt his back, though. And I can't remember, I split a sheet and the sheet split me. He taught us that one. What was some of the other things he taught us how to say real fast?
I don't know, rubber baby buggy bumpers, the only one I can remember.
Peter Piper pecked a peck of pickled peppers. If Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers, how many peppers did Peter Piper pick? I think that was about the only last ones I could remember.
Huh.
And
Now see, he taught me stuff like, here's the wine, sparkling red, I'll still be drinking when you're drunk in bed. You guys got the good parents, we got the psychos.
yeah, I tell you, we had different parents, really, a lot of the time. I can remember one time I was living with the Pages, and I fried chicken, I made potato salad, and we were going to go out for a picnic on Sunday, because we had Saturday and Sunday. We would go bowling on Saturday or Sunday. We'd go to games, and I usually got Friday, Saturday, and Sunday with him. The rest of the time I was in school or with the others. And we were going to go on this picnic. Well, when we got up that Sunday morning, it was raining and cloudy and icky. He says, we'll drive until we find sunshine for our picnic. We drove to Sandpoint, Idaho, from Medellin Falls before we found sunshine, and we had a picnic. But that I was 17, I think, 17, almost 18 at that time. I was living with the Pages, and he taught me to drive his car. Let me drive it occasionally. He would say, "I think you're a little close to the line," and I thought he meant the center line, so I'd pull over. And he'd say, "You're a little close to the line," and I'd pull over. So finally he decided he better shut up because I was going to put us in the ditch. But I would slide down his car. This one I could see the white line, and the center of the hood had some sort of emblem or something. And I would see that the side of the road on that, and that's where I'd stay, right between those 2 lines. And that's how I sighted the car in for driving it. He took me my junior prom. Like I said, we'd go to the movies in Newport, or we'd go bowling on weekends. We'd go to every basketball game that ever was. We did go to movies in Medellin Falls, and his place was the left door going into the theater, first seat right there. We always sat right there because we was going into the theater because he wanted to be able to get out quickly. But we'd go to movies there, and we'd go on weekends. The last spanking I remember him giving me was a swat on the ass when I was 18. He was down one side of big Medellin Falls, you know, it's so big you can't see each other on the street, you know. He was on one side walking when I was on the other, and I said, "Daddy!" I hollered at him about 4 times, he didn't answer me. I went, "Yo, Ben!" He spanked me. I wasn't supposed to call him Ben. I said, "Well, you wouldn't answer me." So that was the last spanking I remember he ever gave me. Oh, I think that's about all I can remember.
Mm-hmm. What about Aunt Betty then? All right.
Aunt Betty
Yeah.
saved my bacon one time.
Mm-hmm.
Quite a few times. We were in the Lilac Parade in Spokane, and we were supposed to have white shirts and black skirts. And Mama went down, and I know it was hard for him to get the money and we made a pleated skirt for me for band. Well, in the meantime, the band teacher changed his mind about the color. he wanted white skirts and white shirts. And I went to Aunt Betty crying because I told her, I says, Mama was so mad when I asked for the material to make the skirt that she'd have a fit. And Aunt Betty went down and bought me a white pleated skirt. And I knew it was hard on her too, but she got me that white pleated skirt. And then they were to watch us on TV on the parade, and Mother said to watch for everybody in black and white because that's what the Medaling Falls band was supposed to be wearing. The guys wore black pants and white shirts, and they still had the black pants and white shirts, but all the girls had to have white skirts and white shirts. And Barbara, Mama said, there she is, and Mama didn't get to see me because she was saying that's not the right band, and it was. Yes.
Yeah.
I can remember when Aunt Betty lived in that house along the river that was falling down in the basement.
Where Wallace's house.
Yeah, and every time I would come from home to visit her, I had to bring my toolbox and my vacuum cleaner. So we would fix things that was broken. So if I came, I had to bring my toolbox and my rug cleaning vacuum cleaner. I loved visiting with her. I put her chair up on a pedestal so it didn't have to sit down so low for her. Visit with her. She was quite a lady, really was.
What were some of the stories she'd tell you?
Oh, we don't go there.
Well, then
No,
tell us some that
no,
you could.
No, I can't remember. She told me about Grandpa. I've got a beautiful mirror. I think it's beautiful. It's old, old, old. It's got kind of an ivory case over it and a crack in it, but it was Grandpa Martin's, and she gave it to me. And his billfold.
Mm-hmm.
She said I was the oldest. Oh, that what got me into a lot of trouble. Daddy used to say, "You're the oldest, you ought to know better." Spank you to top and work to the bottom. And everybody got a spanking. Whoever did, we didn't squeal on each other, but we'd kill the one who caused them when we'd get done. And he would always say, "You're the oldest, you ought to know better." I swore I'd never say that to my kids. I never did. Danny couldn't have been more than 4 years old when I turned around to him and I said, "You're older, you ought to be better." And I smacked my own mouth, and Mary Ann started laughing just like she is right now, because she knew that I had sworn I'd never say that to anybody. And I said it to my grandson. But I made it through 3 kids.
Never have sense.
No.
Yeah.
But that was Daddy's favorite line. You're older, you ought to know better. And he'd start at the top and work to the bottom. We'd kill each other fighting, but anybody else step in line, we'd kill them. We'd like a joint army. Mama used to tease, was it Marky who didn't like macaroni and cheese, or was it Clayton? We always had macaroni and cheese. We ate a lot of macaroni and cheese. He'd come down, "Well, I can't eat cheese, it makes me sick." She says, "Well, it isn't cheese, it's macaroni and cream." And he'd eat it for her.
You was Skip.
Was it Skipper?
Yeah.
I knew it was one of them boys. They did not like cheese, or could not eat cheese, but he'd eat cheese at our house, because that's what we had. And I can't remember a whole lot of stories about Aunt Betty, except just spending a lot of time with her. Just
Well, we each spent a week in the summer with her. She'd always take you someplace special.
Mm.
You went to Canada, and I went to Ellensburg picking strawberries.
Did you? I couldn't remember. I remember spending time with Janie at Grandma Nelson's. That was cool.
What'd you do?
Grandma Nelson was such a prim little lady. And I can remember her black, they have come back into style. The black shoes she used to wear, the older ladies used to wear all the time. And she was always baking something in the kitchen. It seemed like always doing something in the kitchen. And I can remember Grandpa Nelson always sliding hangers. No matter where you were in the house, you could hear him sliding hangers. And they lived in a house not too far down the street from where Aunt Betty lived when I'd go help her do stuff, patch things in her little house.
2 doors down.
2 doors down? I remember Grandma Nelson. She was a neat lady. She was my ideal, the perfect grandma, because that was the only grandma we ever had. We just borrowed other people's grandmas.
Yeah.
We'll take on anybody's, we don't care.
Yeah.
Both of our grandmothers died before our parents were married.
Well, Mama was 3 and Daddy was 19 when he lost his.
Mhm.
Daddy almost died of poisoning from appendix when he was a kid. They burst and it got filled with gangrene and stuff. He almost died.
You said you had fun with Aunt Jane during this time. What did you do there?
Oh, Janie?
Yeah.
She spent a lot of Saturday nights with us and go to church with us on Sunday and then go home. But we just played and giggled and just like kids, you know. Well, I don't know. Some kids, they got to go to games. They got to do stuff like that. But when I was a kid growing up, you didn't have the TV a lot. We read a lot, but you sit there and tell each other what stories about, like we did with the graveyard and stuff like that. And we did that with Janie, and we just, it was part of the family, you know. You just, nothing spectacular once in a while, you know. It was just, we spent a lot of time together. I can remember coming to her house one time in Spokane. Martin, guys, I'm sorry here. We had stopped at Pasco when Uncle Don lived in there. We was coming back from Oregon. And Uncle Don says, you guys want some pizza? And we said, sure. And so Mary Ann and I stayed with Aunt Jean, and Lonnie, Tim, and Todd got in the car with Uncle Don and went to get pizza. And Lonnie Tim come back in just white as a sheet. He said, don't ever put me in a rig with a Martin again, ever. I had forgot Uncle Don would swing out, you foreign-grown bastard. And he said he drives crazy. He said he loved being with Clayton because Clayton could look at you and at the road at the same time.
Yeah.
Hey, cross-eyed. He loved him. And shortly after we got back from Pasco, we had stopped at Aunt Betty's because I'd go in 2 or 3 times during the month and visit with Janie when she was going through dialysis and stuff, and I got to visit with Aunt Betty at the same time. And Aunt Betty, we'd gotten there, and Aunt Betty said, the dog is sick, I got to take him to the vet. Can Lonnie Tim ride with me and hold the dog? And I said, sure, no problem. I had forgotten how the Martins drive. I really, honest to God, had forgotten how the Martins drive. And he come back, gritted his teeth, and said, don't ever put me in a rig with a Martin again. Ever!
And Lonnie Tim will scare the hair off from underneath your arms.
Oh yeah, he's a Martin, and he swears he is. He drives just like him. But that's the funniest thing. Aunt Betty take you in some of the most bizarre places for plants, vegetables, or berries. Barbara got to go on a lot of trips getting dried plants.
Usually some damn weed that nobody else would drag into their house, but you want it.
Yeah, but you could have good flower arrangements with those weeds in there. And she knew the names of everything. And she just seemed to be a dictionary of different things. You know, you never knew what she
Did you ever ask her how she figured all that stuff out?
Nah, she just smart and knew all of it.
She read all the time.
Yeah, she did.
Yeah, but a lot of it just came from growing up around that, you know.
Yeah.
When Uncle Bill was 8 years old, he used to go up on Mount Linton, Huckleberry, all by himself and spend the night. And,
Good
you know,
grief.
back in them days, they didn't think nothing of that.
Well, I remember Uncle Gus driving cattle in the summertime. The spring they'd take off and go way up, him and Uncle Bill, and go up and drive the cattle up, and we'd go as far as the roads would go, and then we'd turn around, come home, and he'd keep on going. And then he'd
Up
come
on
back up,
Grassy Top.
yeah, take the cows up. Aunt Betty said she would never grow another sweet potato because every time she plant she did, Uncle Gus would break his leg.
Really?
Yeah, 2 or 3 different times he broke his leg, and she had a sweet potato plant growing at that time. I mean, that can be a beautiful thing. And she started out with just a sweet potato in a pot on the kitchen windowsill and just grow all over the place. Uncle Gus ended up breaking his leg. No, she compared it to the plant. I don't think it had nothing to do with it, but she wasn't going to grow no more of them things. She could grow a plant, I mean, a stick, it would grow.
Did she ever have any really big gardens or
Oh, yeah, acres.
Yeah.
We all had gardens. We couldn't go play till we did our row of weeds.
Oh, yeah, you had to weed
You
your
had to
garden.
weed the garden.
Speaking of the garden, when we were, I don't know, I was probably 4, maybe 5. Mom got the wild hair for her garden that to make it grow better, she would take horse manure and put it in a burlap bag and hang it like a tea bag in a 55-gallon drum, put water in it. This horse manure was like a giant tea bag, you know, and it would steep in there. Then Jane and Ken would have to take buckets and pack it into the garden and pour it on each plant in the garden. Well, I was the little Japanese guard because I had one of them little wooden M1 rifles that all the little kids had back then with a bayonet on it. And I'd go along behind them jabbing them because Mom would be watching, and I'd get away with it until Mom wasn't watching anymore, and then they'd beat the crap out of me. But as long as Mom was watching, I'd jab them, and that was just a rotten kid.
I remember swinging through the barn on a rope, jumping out of the rafters of it into the hay. We could have killed ourselves, but we had a ball. And the roadways, we made it with in the dirt, the toys.
Dirt pile, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We had a massive dirt pile.
Oh yeah.
And the cool thing about the dirt pile is every once in a while when Dad was walking by to the garage, he'd stop and play on the dirt pile.
Did he? I never saw that.
Yeah, it was kind of fun.
Okay, so you went to high school.
Fortunately.
Yeah, I know. I didn't
Did
care
you-
much for it either.
Did you ever go to Selkirk, or was it still?
We
Still Marion
the
Falls.
first year we were consolidated. The teachers were traveling back and forth, and some of the students. But I never went to Ione, but some of the Ione kids come up. We were called Selkirk the first year, but that was my junior year.
Mm-hmm. Now, where was this school? Was it at Selkirk High School or was it in Ione?
It wasn't built yet,
Aha.
and they went to their classes in Ione, and we went to ours in Medaling Falls, and the teachers did most of the traveling back and forth. But some of the students for some of the classes from Ione had to come to Medaling Falls. But
Wow.
I never did go to Ione, except for basketball games.
Yeah? Yeah.
I played in the trumpet in the band so that I could play at all the games for free.
Wow.
You can go to the games.
Wow. So that was your only extracurricular
Yeah,
activity?
yeah.
Yeah. Which
I was-
class in high school did you dread the most?
All of them, all the above. I was a D to an F student, and the only way I got a C or a D is I put a lot of 1,000-word themes together for each one of them teachers, and I worked hard for them. Then the only reason I passed the English class is because by Wednesday he was drunk, Saturday he was stinking, Monday he was pretty good, and we only had to really work at class for Monday and Tuesday, because by Wednesday he was already drinking again. And I can't, Andraco? Andraco, Mr. Andraco. Yep, you sat the Monday and Tuesday, you sat at the front of his class. Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, you sat at the back of the class because he smelled so bad. He was falling off his butt drunk all the time.
Wow. Wow. First car.
I was married.
Okay. First car. What was it?
Oh, actually the very first car I ever had. I got to drive the Pacer once in a while. That was brand new.
Mm-hmm.
That was our first new car. I got to drive Lonnie's cars a lot. I think my very first car for me was my Oldsmobile. And my kids were in high school by the time I got that thing. That was my car.
Uh-huh. Okay. Now that you're on a captive audience, tell us a little about your kids. And you're allowed to say anything you want to about them, even if it's bad.
I didn't have too much.
Who's she riding home with, though?
Yeah, I have to get home.
Yeah. But I've got the evidence. So.
My first child was Mary Ann. She was born May 30th, 1964. And Roseburg, Oregon. I thought she was the most beautiful baby.
She was.
She was a beautiful baby. Her
And
first,
she could wink.
yes, she'd wink and go
Wow.
hi by the time she was a year old. And Everybody thought she was a beautiful baby. She was born on the Memorial Day. She was the only girl born out of 11 babies. She had dark brown eyes, and I just sat there and listened to everybody say, "Look at that baby." I'll say, "It's mine." Her first trip was to Eugene, Oregon to see her aunt, Polly, in the hospital. Her daddy tried to sell her at a month old for $25,000, and I said, "No, wait." He said, "We could make another one just like her," and I told him for years, "See, we didn't make another one just like her." She's a very special child. She used to blame everything on the ghost of the night. The ghost of the night done it, Mama. I didn't.
Yeah.
She would stick her finger up her nose and make it bleed to get her brother into trouble.
Oh my God. There's a new one, I didn't know about that.
And the first time, she'd grab something. Lonnie Tim was born May 13th, 1965. He'd stand in the middle of the room for like half an hour at a time, and I'd try to get him to walk. He wouldn't walk. He was 16 months old before he started to walk. And it was in Shelton, Washington. Mary Ann used to steal toys from him and get away from 2 feet. He couldn't get them. He wouldn't come and get him. He'd just sit there and bawl. And he turned around and took off after her, and her mouth just fell like this. I had to go to the bathroom and laugh so hard because I didn't want to laugh in front of him. And I laughed so hard it took me half an hour to get calm again. But from that moment on, he buffaloed her. He was running after her all the time from that moment on. We moved a lot. Lonnie Tim was born in Newport, Washington. She ate rat poisoning when she was just a year old. Had to have her stomach pumped. And her first words were, "Home, Mama, home. Home, Mama, home."
Tell them about getting to the hospital with no car and nobody to take you.
Lonnie Tim was 2 weeks old. We lived on the highway between Newport and Priest River. And I had to run half a mile to the neighbors. I picked her up and run half a mile to the neighbors. And she said, "I have to take a shower." I called the hospital. They said, "Get her in." And I ran back down to the house, changed my clothes, got the kids ready, bag on my shoulder. I always looked like I was moving in when I had with my kids. And we took her to the hospital, had her stomach pumped. And 3 weeks later, I stopped a truck in the middle of the road and I said, "You are taking me to the hospital." My son was having a physical problem we will not discuss on film. And we went to the hospital. And my mother-in-law said, "You will get this woman a car. She needs a car to drive." So he had one that I could drive. Wasn't mine, but I had a car. And Todd was born in Colville, November the 14th, 1969, and it was snowing. It snowed so good. And I had no idea how I was going to spell his name. I wanted to name him Ralph Oliver. Or Lonnie wanted me to name him Ralph Oliver, and I said, "If I can call him Robbie." He said, "Nope, it has to be Ralph." That made me think of that dog on TV with Jimmy Dean. Ralph! And I hated that name. My father-in-law's name was Ralph. But I didn't have to call him that. I called him Dad. So he got Todd Oliver Alexander Bicknell. And Van Dyke girl said, "You might as well have named him Sue." But people say, "Oh, you do have another child, don't you?" Nobody ever remembers Todd. He's a memorable child. But the Lonnie Tim and Mary Ann were so close to the same size when they were growing up that everybody thought they were twins. They were just, Lonnie Tim was so big and Mary Ann just a smaller baby. And she had a bottle till she was 2 because I couldn't break Lonnie Tim and leave her on take it away from her. So we went out to the train track and we threw bottles in Klamath Falls, Oregon. And they went back and told Daddy that Mama throwed their bottles away. And the choo-choo come and took it. And we moved a lot. We moved from Roseburg, Klamath Falls, Spokane, Ione, had Todd in Colville, and moved to Spokane. And they went to school in Spokane, made them really good kids. Never had any problems with them. And then we moved to Cloverleaf Road in Hauser Lake, Idaho, when Marianne was 12. And the funniest thing about Lonnie Tim is never ask him, is there gas in the tank? That is a sore subject. He had a motorcycle and he couldn't get it to run, so he tried going down the hill with it and jump start, kind of jump on and start it. And he couldn't get it started, and I was standing on the porch. I said, is there any gas in the tank? No, I did it like this, and he kicked that sucker over the bank. And then he found out there was no gas in the tank. So when something doesn't work, Mama walks out and says, is there any gas in the tank? No matter what it is there any gas in the tank? Oh, shut up. He used to tell me he was going to put me in a nursing home and force feed me tea. I hated tea. I made tea for them by the gallons, but I hated tea. And he says, well, I'm going to get you and you're going to force feed you tea. I said, that's all right, honey. I'm going to get you a nice nurse that says, come on, honey. And so he quit teasing me. And they have grown up to be quite helpful to their mother. And I love all three of them. And my grandchildren. Danny and Marianne Gold. I got Danny, and Danny would go around saying, she loves me best.
Tiffany, correct?
What did I say?
Marianne.
Sorry about that, it's Tiffany.
Danny and Marianne.
Yeah, I mean.
Contrary to popular belief, it's not Stephanie.
Nope, it's not. My dad did get to see Danny, but he never got to see Tiffany. He died in November before she was born. And she was born on his birthday.
Wow.
August the 16th.
Mm-hmm. Of your kids and obvious going through high school and all, what were some interesting moments that occurred that you probably didn't let them know you were laughing or something along those lines, but they do something and you just, I cannot believe they just did that, Give us some of those.
We didn't have a whole lot of those as they were growing up. They kind of stuck themselves one time. We were sitting, it was shortly after Marianne got married or just before, and we were sitting there telling stories. They were saying about what they did this, and we had a motorcycle that they used to run around a lot. Well, we're just going up on top of the hill. We're going to run around on top of the hill. And they was in Newman Lake and Hauser Lake, and I kind of knew that, but you never said anything.
On the hill.
It was up on the hill, and they were sitting there telling stories, and both of them at the same time covered their mouths and like, "Oh my God, Mama knows." I said, "What can I do about it now?"
Uh-huh. Well, one of the reasons I asked that is because I asked Uncle Carl yesterday, what's one thing you got away with that your parents didn't know about, but to this day, you're like, whew, I'm glad they never found out about that. Give us one of those, because they're not around, obviously, to do anything to you.
I was such a saint.
Sure you were. Okay, now tell us what it was. Come on. There had to have been something. No kid is that innocent, ever. So.
They believed in Santa Claus until they were 13 years old. Of course they were innocent.
No, they were gullible. That doesn't mean innocent.
Well, I guess we've been told.
Yes. I cannot remember anything that I wouldn't have done in front of my mom and dad that I didn't do.
Mm-hmm.
Because of God coming down and grabbing my shoulder and saying, I caught you.
Did you ever steal a candy bar from Jonesy's drugstore?
Oh, Lord, yes. That would, Daddy, they found out about that.
Oh,
though.
they didn't find about mine.
Mine wasn't just a candy bar. I used to take a shopping list with me for people from school. Whatever. And, to this day, if I had to walk in front of that man, I would drop in a puddle in front of him and die.
Oh, so would I, because he had to know everything.
He knew. I think I heard somewhere down the way that he just put the bill on Daddy, and Daddy, they never confronted me with. It was just probably the last year before they separated that we were allowed to leave the school grounds, and I walked down there, and everybody was doing things, and somebody wanted this kind. I never really got anything for myself, but I walked out with probably 5 or 6 candy bars for other people, in pockets sticking out. They wasn't hidden. They were in pockets sticking up where you could see them. And I'd go back to school and give them out to everybody. And I was so terrified of somebody coming up behind me and saying they had seen me do this, I just knew I'd die, that I was overly with my kids. If they did something, I went with them to tell what they did to whoever. They had a cousin that loved getting them into trouble, and he would run home, and I swore, God, let me kill him just once. Just let me get between him and kill him. Marianne has a scar on her knee from being somewhere she wasn't supposed to be because Scotty was helping her. Lonnie Tim has a gash in the side of his head. I knew his brains were coming out. It looked like it. Because of someplace Scotty wasn't, they were supposed to be, and Scotty would run home and not get in trouble. They took a hammer to a box someplace to the neighbors and crushed it, and the three of us went back and apologized to the man, and told him that we were sorry that was done, because the Jonesy thing just about killed me. And when I walked back in any time after that, I just knew that he would come and grab me. I just knew it.
With me, it was Ed Dressel.
Oh,
I had Mom marched me back in.
Oh,
I had to
Lord.
give him back the candy bar, and then pay him as well, and not get the candy bar.
when Lonnie Tim was 7 or 8 years old, he started having really bad nightmares. We couldn't figure out why. And I mean, just any reason he had these nightmares. And we were sitting in my bedroom and we went like this, and we could see a light in the wall between our bedroom and the bathroom. And you're not supposed to be able to see a light between your wall and the bedroom. There was a perfect bullet hole right between them. My house coat had hung over that forever. And I took my house coat down, the bathroom light was on, and we had found out Lonnie Tim had got up on our bed and gotten the pistol out and shot a hole in the wall, and he had gone through my house coat into the wall. I don't know why, I still do, I have a tin can. I used to save the bits and pieces of the soap left over, and that was full of it, and there was a bullet in it. It had slid through that soap and hit the can like this and knocked a piece of the wood off the paneling in the bathroom. We couldn't figure out where that comes from.
I remember getting in trouble for that panel.
Mm-hmm. And couldn't figure out where it come in. He bawled for, Lonnie said, Mom, I'm going to have a talk with him. I says, we will have a talk with him. And he just got down and he says, thank you for finding out. I have been sick just knowing it was going to happen. He was quite the actor. I was sick. And he really was. He was sick.
But he wasn't gonna bring it up on his own.
Oh, no.
Well,
No.
naturally not.
And he is so radical with anybody with guns now because of that he just kind of goes ballistic. Get the guns! No ammo, nothing like this. But that was about the most violent thing besides her rat poisoning for things happening in our life. And that, that's just about blow your mind about the different things that you don't want your parents ever to know. My life has been one big lie my whole life, and it's scary. You try to make everybody think you're this perfect little person. You wouldn't do anything wrong. So you try your best to raise people and do your best on that. And thank God I haven't done the best, but I haven't killed anybody.
There you go. That's always a start. Yeah. Okay. No, I'll leave that one alone.
Oh, good. Bless your heart. Whatever it was, bless your
Yeah,
heart.
that was almost too good.
His bed
Okay, well let's just do
gun down off. Turned around, and I was kind of laying on
closing
the
remarks.
bed.
Closing remarks.
He pulled the trigger and went off.
I
went on
think,
the bed.
it's hard as being the children of divorced parents that the parents we have has made every one of us special people in our own right. I wouldn't trade one person for my brothers and my sisters that I have, and I thank God for each and every one of them. There's points about my parents no one can ever take from me. I told Kathy one time, I said I was raised by two totally different people. I hear that remark from my son. That isn't the woman who raised me. I want to see that woman. And I thank God for the parents I had, even though things didn't work out. But what would we be if we didn't have them? You know, what kind of person would we be now? I thank God that we can be close, and through the miles, we are still a close-knit family. We care about each other. I am grateful for each and every one of them. I'm grateful the children the Lord gave me, and the grandchildren, and the son-in-law, even though a pain that he is sometimes.
Well, he woke right up.
Well,
He used to say she loves me best, but I don't think he said that for a long time. They have helped me through a traumatic 3 or 4 years that my son tries to keep telling me, you had to know about it. And God has helped me through a lot. The love of my sisters and my brother have helped me a lot. Just the love of everybody, and I love my nieces and nephews. And I hope they're as blessed through their life as I have been with family. Because family is what really counts.
cool.
Amen.
There you go. Say bye-bye.
Goodbye.